Hello everyone. Welcome to the Villager video series. If there is any place in this world most likely to harbor large species undiscovered by humans, it is undoubtedly our vast ocean. Sightings of sea monsters from all over the world are countless, like the sea serpents we talked about before, multi-finned oddly shaped giant cephalopods, etc. These stories full of bizarre colors and sighting records constantly stimulate people's curiosity and desire for exploration, and what I want to share with you today is another strange and unique sea monster category: giant jellyfish. Giant jellyfish, as the name suggests, can be simply understood as a type beyond human cognition of large invertebrate planktonic animals. The term itself is generally used to refer to the currently known largest jellyfish species in the world, the lion's mane jellyfish, also called the missing jellyfish. The maximum diameter of its bell can reach about 2.5 meters, and its tentacles can reach a terrifying 36 meters. But the giant jellyfish referred to in this video could be several times the size of the lion's mane, or even a dozen times larger. Imagine a huge underwater creature that hunts large fish and possesses highly toxic venom. What kind of image would that be? In 1957, British sci-fi writer Eric Frank Russell collected a series of anomalies that challenged known facts and compiled them into a book titled Great World Mysteries. This is one of his few non-fiction works. There is a chapter in the book specifically themed around sea monsters, and it mentions a story from 1953. A diver named Christopher Lowe from Australia encountered something while working in the South Pacific, a sighting report of a giant sea monster. The worker's original words were as follows: "A 15-foot long shark had been wandering around me, but he made no attempt to attack me. I kept wondering how deep he would go. He hovered about 30 feet away from me and about 20 feet higher than me. At this time I came under a protruding rock. It was a bottomless crevasse, dangerous to dive any deeper. I stood there looking down into the abyss below, while the shark waited for my next move. Suddenly the water got noticeably colder. As the water temperature dropped at an alarming rate, I saw a black object rising from the darkness of the abyss, floating upwards very slowly. When the light hit it for the last time, I could see it was a massive dark brown object, flat in overall shape, with ragged edges, estimated to be huge. It was pulsating slowly. Although I saw no limbs or eyes, I knew it was a living thing. This terrible shadow was still moving when it drifted past my altitude. The cold had become extremely intense. I don't know if it was the low temperature or fear. The shark just hung there motionless. Just as I watched in fascination, that brown colossus approached the shark, and its upper surface touched him. The shark immediately convulsed and trembled, and was drawn into the monster's body without resistance. I stood there not daring to move, and that brown object, just as it had surfaced, slowly sank back into the abyss, disappearing into the darkness. At this time, the water temperature began to recover. Heaven knows what that thing was, but I have no doubt it came from the primordial slime of countless ages past. In 1968, a diver from a Chilean hydrographic expedition also described a similar encounter. In 1969, Soviet writers and chemist Mikhail Yemz and Aramay met with the witness in France. They interviewed the latter and detailed the process in their book. But since the article is narrated in the first person, so I will roughly summarize its key content here. That year, their group of 7 people took a research vessel named to Inagua Island in the Bahamas, aiming to study the effect of isotopic composition of different waters on animal metabolism. When they dived to a sufficient depth, a leopard shark swam slowly towards the diver, followed by a hammerhead shark in a school of fish that looked like they were fleeing. Just then, it happened. The witness's original words were, "It all happened within a few seconds. I didn't even have time to use the intercom to warn the team of the impending danger. I saw the thing. A huge brown object with dark blue edges, just like a jellyfish, slowly swimming up from the depths, like a layer of dirty, impenetrable fog. It covered all the blue color. It seemed to shroud everything endlessly. I was worried my sized estimation was wrong. Its size clearly exceeded 1 square kilometer. The trembling gelatinous body shimmered with bubbles, faintly sinking into the distant silt. Its edges were like a giant swollen weapon. Swaying slowly, it rose from the abyss, slowly like a ghost. The embodiment of silent terror. I knew what was happening, and I saw everything. But my body was like this, frozen in a moment, unable to move. The sharks also froze there, and the brown mass suddenly stopped, hovering beneath the sharks. Immediately after, as if an electric current hit everything, all the fish bent their bodies, convulsing and trembling, and started to slowly sink into the bubbling mass like a cup of sugar, melting into jelly. Seeing this, the witness thereupon was overwhelmed by an indescribable fear. He stated he couldn't even lift a finger at that moment, only knowing that his vision went black, heart rhythm irregular, body stopped obeying commands. He bent over and slowly fell into the abyss. When he woke up in a Moscow hospital, 2 months had passed. During this period he was in a coma. Captain Renia told him. Modis from the rescue team caught up to him after he had unconsciously descended about 10 meters, caught up with him. At that time his teeth were biting the mouthpiece tightly, body convulsing, leading to inability to breathe, including the captain. Those who went to rescue all saw that huge brown monster carrying those paralyzed fish slowly sinking into the crevasse. When the diver was saved onto the boat, the captain decided on the spot to attack that thing with bombs, but in the end, it didn't cause enough damage. The gap torn by the explosion slowly closed, finally leaving only dead fish scattered on the surface. 1974, American paranormal investigator Richard Weiner in his book The Devil's Triangle recorded that in November 1969 he was conducting underwater filming for a marine research project for General Electric in waters about 14 miles south of Bermuda at a depth of 30 to 40 feet. He saw the thing that puzzled him for years. It was approaching evening that day. Dim light shone through the sea surface, appearing distorted. He had just finished filming the movement of an instrument buoy and used up the last roll of film. Just then, his safety officer, Pat Porter, grabbed his shoulder and pointed downwards. Immediately after, he saw that massive deep-sea giant. Weiner's original words were, "I saw a shocking scene. I couldn't tell how deep it was, nor did I know how big it was. It might have been about 100 feet below us, or possibly 150 feet deep. I could only roughly estimate its size. Maybe it was 100 feet wide, or maybe 75 feet. But the diameter was absolutely no less than 50 feet. It appeared as a perfect, deep purple circle, moving slowly towards us. Its edges were pink and undulating slowly, but the water current didn't change with it. When we started to ascend, it also stopped rising, and then slowly descended, returning to the dark deep sea. We watched it in awe, until it disappeared. A long time passed, and they could never confirm what kind of creature that was. Pat speculated it was a giant squid, but until one day, Richard Weiner, at Madura Wharf in the Marshall Islands, saw a group of jellyfish. Did he realize the giant creature he encountered that day moved exactly like a jellyfish? Later, regarding this event, he accepted an interview with American cryptologist Gary Mo and finally drew this depiction of the creature. Time moves to the 21st century. Russian journalist and writer Vlad Velinov, in his 2010 book, Secret Arts of the Four Oceans, included a series of sightings, including the above events, of giant invertebrates collected and mentioned in May 1990. Russian newspapers were filled with reports of mass deaths of marine animals. Environmentalists everywhere attributed this event to submarine accidents concealed by the media or caused by certain military forces dumping chemical agents into the sea. Leningrad biologists from the Hydrometeorological Institute examined the body independently. The conclusion drawn was the death of these marine organisms. Inside Russia, there was no chemical industry producing such toxins. Soon, in 1991 and 1992, many regions globally, including coastal Canada, North Carolina, USA, Gulf of Mexico, and Sea of Japan, all experienced similar fish and marine organism mass death events. Scientists finally attributed this to some undiscovered marine creature, although maybe because my search direction for Russian literature was incorrect. I did not find the relevant reports from those years, expert papers, but if there really were researchers giving such conclusions, combined with human destructive acts on the ocean in recent years, I personally think throwing the blame on an unknown creature that can destroy ecology worldwide obviously isn't very convincing. Additionally, Vlad Velinov, in his book, recorded a Report from French media in 2005. The report mentioned French diver Henry Ast, contracted with a Thai company and was invited to work in the Gulf of Thailand. That day, he and his companion rode in a special protective cage, descending about 80 meters from the mothership, stopping descent only when they saw a school of big fish. Just then, they noticed a strange phenomenon. In the abyss below, a strange brown object of unimaginable size was slowly rising towards the school of fish. When it reached 10 to 15 meters from the fish, the behavior of those fish suddenly became strange. Individual fish suddenly became stiff, then turned on their sides, slowly sinking into that brown matter. Immediately after, all surrounding fish met the same fate. Henry's partner, ignoring his objections, decided to swim down a bit to see what happened. But 15 minutes later, he still hadn't returned. Henry immediately sounded the alarm. When rescuers dove to their position, they found nothing. That brown colossus had already sunk into the depths of the sea. They didn't even find that diver's body at all. The above are the relevant sighting reports about giant jellyfish. In fact, regarding whether what witnesses of giant jellyfish saw was actually jellyfish. On this point, scholars' opinions are not unified. Editor of the International 14 Organization Paul Willis, Journal, in a 1972 magazine, analyzed Christopher Lowe's 1953 sighting event. In an article, he believes although the event date is marked 1953, because the sighting records we see now are the editor's abridged version of Professor Russell's original documents, so a lot of information we cannot verify. But he believes this incident cannot be completely classified as fiction because the creature described by the witness sounds very much like a giant individual of the umbrella living in the deep sea. The cryptozoologist mentioned above, Gary Monjacopra, clearly stated in his work that giant jellyfish near Bermuda could exist. He believes that although biological size is limited by many factors, based on discovered jellyfish species, it is theoretically possible for larger and undiscovered jellyfish types to exist. Cryptozoologist Dr. Carl Schuker believes, in the record, the diver did not see the creature having tentacles. Some especially deep-sea species, do indeed lack tentacles, and the sudden paralysis of the shark can be explained by the toxic stinging cells of giant jellyfish. Specifically mentioned a similar species, This is a very rare large jellyfish, belonging to the Elmirate family, found in the Pacific, North Atlantic and cold waters around Antarctica have been found. The bell is wide and thin. The largest individual diameter found so reached about 1 meter. The surface of the bell is distributed with a large number of stinging cells. Unlike the common moon jellyfish we see, species under the genus Digimedusa have no rely on the extensibility of the bell to wrap prey and then kill it with stinging cells. This creature generally lives in the dim mesopelagic zone at depths of 500 to 1800 looking at form and habits. The giant jellyfish seen by the witness, aside from the size difference, is indeed extremely similar to And speaking of cryptozoologist Professor Chad Armont, in the 2000 North American Biofortean Review, mentioned a report from an internet news group. The poster told of his late friend, George Hale, who in the 1970s worked as an underwater welder for Gulf Oil, while working on an oil rig in the Gulf of Mexico, once saw a giant invertebrate he couldn't describe. Indescribable giant invertebrate. Compared to that creature's size, humans were just like ants. That was the first time he saw that thing. And the last time, in fear, he caught the first helicopter back. Since then, he never looked at the sea again. Hale described the predator's color and texture looked like a sea anemone. Form was similar to a starfish or hydra. This event depicted yet another unknown giant cnidarian besides jellyfish. Actually synthesizing all known data above, I think the credibility of giant jellyfish sighting events is questionable, but the possibility of this creature's existence remains. First, the sources of all sighting events are not very clear. I didn't find any original reports or detailed records of interviewee information, like the original manuscript of the 1953 material, missing main personnel info in the 1968 event, the paper archives mentioned in the 2010 material, etc. All these events feel like hearing a legend. Hearing his story from his mouth. Of course, this may be due to my personal access or information gaps caused by historical issues, but I still feel key credible elements are missing. And saying this creature could possibly exist is because I think the animal jellyfish itself has strong enough environmental adaptability, found almost everywhere globally and in waters of various depths. And the ecological performance of some populations is magical, like species under the genus Tori, through reverse development and Medusa stages, theoretically allowing them to avoid external factors and achieve immortality. Also, jellyfish are one of the oldest multicellular animals on Earth. Modern research indicates this creature appeared as early as 700 million years ago, or even earlier in the Neoproterozoic era. Enough ancient evolutionary history, amazing biological attributes, plus the inclusiveness of the vast ocean. We have reason to believe some giant jellyfish population might just live in that abyss, yet unexplored by humans. Of course, this is just my personal guess, but I also believe with the continuous development and progress of human civilization, we will be able to overcome the difficulties and risks of deep-sea exploration and truly reveal the most mysterious place on this earth. Alright, finally, as always, the unknown is always greater than the known. This is the charm of the villager. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching.